Everyone knows that cats are carnivores. Not only that, they're what's known as obligate carnivores. But what does that actually mean? Is meat all they really need? And how does the diet of cats in the wild actually relate to the best way to feed your pet cat at home? Well, I spoke to veterinary nutritionist Dr. Dottie LaFlamme to find out more.
Why don't we take it from the top and talk about what it means to be a carnivore and what it means to be an obligate carnivore,
Absolutely.
just
Great
as a
start,
starting point. So carnivores is a taxonomic categorization. Dogs are carnivores, cats are carnivores, bears are carnivores, so forth. And yet there's vegetarian bears. So let's just recognize that the fact that something's called a carnivore in itself doesn't mean anything. The perception that cats are obligate carnivores, what that really means is that cats require certain nutrients in nature only in animal products. A carnivore, basically what that means is that that animal naturally will be a prey eater. So let me elaborate a little bit even more on that. When we talk about a dog or a cat or any other carnivore that's eating in the wild, they're eating prey, that means that they're an animal eater, which is different than a meat eater. Some people think, I want to feed my animal like a carnivore, so I'm going to give it steak, I'm going to give it chicken breast, whatnot. Sure, that's wonderful protein, but it's not complete nutrition. When a cat eats a whole animal, when a dog eats a whole animal, they're eating the muscle, but they're also eating the organs, they're also eating the contents of the intestines. So they're getting a much broader collection of nutrients than just eating meat. So carnivore means animal eater, and cats are called obligate carnivores because they naturally require, or they require certain nutrients that are naturally found only in animal products. Okay. What it does not mean that carnivores or cats cannot utilize other nutrients. What it means is there's a handful of nutrients that they have to have either naturally from animal product or synthetic. For example, some vitamins, minerals can be provided synthetically.
Yeah, fantastic. And that's a really important definition, because you're right, that phrase obligate carnivore, I think, is the logical jump is to say they need to eat meat and only meat, but that's not what it means. They need to have a proportion of the proteins that are naturally present in meat. They need to have that proportion in their diet, but they can absolutely then, the jump goes, utilize, or it's not harmful, but they can actually utilize all of these other things that they're eating.
Absolutely. And it's certainly not just the proteins from animal sources. It's vitamins and minerals as well. So yeah, lots of different nutrients to consider.
So with that in mind, so we've got our cats there, they're hunting their prey, they're small rodents, whatever it is. What kind of profile do they provide the cat? So we've spoken there about the organs, but their stomach contents as well. So they're going to be eating a certain percentage of carbohydrate in their natural diet as well.
Sure. And there's been a couple of studies with feral cats looking at typical diets of feral cats and what that translates to in terms of those macronutrients. And protein is the biggest component, fat is the next, and carbohydrates is the smallest amount, somewhere between 2 and 6% of the calories coming from carbohydrates, the biggest chunk of it coming from protein, and fat also making up a big component. This difference between that particular breakdown with, let's call it 5% carbohydrate compared to commercial dry diets that might have 30 to 45% carbohydrates. That difference in carbohydrate content is perhaps part of the misperception or the concern about foods and why are cats getting so much carbohydrate. So we're going to be talking about that. But I want to bring up another point. We've talked about the term of obligate carnivores. We also need to bring up another term, and that's called opportunistic diet. Some people think about this evolutionary diet, whether they're talking humans or they're talking wild dogs and wild cats, based on what those cats in the wild could eat. I want to bring up the term opportunistic diet because that indeed is what wild animals eat. They eat what they're able to hunt, what they're able to catch. And if they are successful in harvesting enough prey, or if they don't have prey, enough roots and leaves and plants and whatever they might eat to fill their bellies, if what they're able to consume has enough nutrients that they survive, then that species, that individual in that species will survive. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a perfect diet. It doesn't mean it's the best diet. It's what the opportunity provides.
Yeah.
So if we think about feral cats today, yes, they live on a diet that's low in carbohydrate, high in protein, but they also don't live very long. The average lifespan of a feral cat is somewhere in the 3 to 5 year range. Not that they die from malnutrition necessarily. Mostly they die from traumatic issues. They're killed by other animals. They become prey themselves or killed by cars. But the point is that they don't live 15, 20 years like we want our pet cats to do.
Yeah. And that's a hugely important statement to make. And because they are living long enough to breed, and cats breed very successfully and very quickly and at a young age, any nutritional problems that may manifest later on don't make a difference to that overall cat population. That's what I'm hearing you say.
Protein is only one component of a cat's diet, with the other two major calorie providing groups being carbohydrates on the one hand and fat on the other. And you can find out how feeding carbohydrates to your cat can affect their long-term health by tapping on the video linked on screen now. So make sure you tap on that. And until then, I'm veterinarian Dr. Alex. This is Our Pets Health, because they're family.